Good evening. We'll call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. The Dune City Council regular session, October 16th. Roll call wise, we're missing Tom now. Did you hear from Tom? No. Okay, I did not either, so everyone's present except Tom. Please join me in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is consideration of the agenda. The agenda appears to be in order. Does anyone have any revisions or deletions they'd like to request? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Consideration of consent agenda, that would be item 5. It includes A, B, C, D, and E. Any questions or comments before we put a motion to approve all of those? Seeing none, at the motion. So moved. Thank you, Rich. And a second? Second. Thank you, Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous as well. Number 6 is announcements or correspondence. Not really an announcement, it's a presentation, but I will do a brief presentation on the survey, and then we're going to post the survey with all the comments on our webpage immediately to follow. And then, if necessary, we'll schedule another meeting to take public comments on survey, but the council hasn't seen all the results either, so I don't think we could do any deep dive on survey results, but and it's not published for the public yet until we make this presentation, then it'll be all available for everybody. But I've got a list of key findings. Number 1, the population that we used, or our population we're told from Lane County, is 1,374, 780 households. We've got 152 responses, which is about 20% of the total households, and it represented about 257 residents. And I say about because we had a question about how many people in these age groups, and those had to be manually summed up. So I may have missed somebody, but I think we had 257 of the residents represented. So based on the numbers, the margin of error is about plus or minus 7%. When I say there's a percentage for or against or whatever, that's plus or minus a few percentage points. So when I say the survey says, I realize this isn't 100% of the people, it's 100% of the people that responded to the survey. So the Dune City population is a relatively mature population with 80% of our respondents 55 years old or older, and 71% are 1 or 2 person households. 55% listed retirement income as their main source of income. So they look like a lot of us. The population is generally very well educated, much more than average, the average community or the statewide average. 59% of the Dune City respondents have a 4-year degree or higher. We have a lot of professional degrees, advanced degrees, a lot of bachelor's degrees. Nearly 60% have a 4-year degree. So I would consider the population very stable. Over 90% are homeowners, and 70% plan to stay at least 20 years, with most of the answers being permanently or the longest list of years available. The things we like most are the great community, the small town feel, and the quiet, beautiful area. The biggest challenges in the future will be managing population growth, water and wastewater, road maintenance, and preserving the natural surroundings. The number one issue well, here's a couple of them. The issue that the council should address, number one was speeding on Clear Lake. That's the biggest road in Dune City. It's also a county road, so we don't directly have jurisdiction. I have been in touch with the county. And in the last, I think, 2 weeks, they put up speed feedback signs on Clear Lake. And, I traded emails with the public works director today. He didn't know if they were recording, so he didn't know if those signs would record data and give us a speeds, survey, or if they were just purely feedback. So I'm waiting to hear from their traffic engineer. I didn't hear back by the time of this meeting, but, we had an open conversation. Of survey respondents, about 1/3 support commercial development, 2/3 do not want any additional commercial development. 81% want the population to be 2,000 or less, in the next 10 years. So I had there was a 10-year horizon. So that includes the portion that said the same population we are today, and then the next smallest, population group was 1,500 to 2,000, and that represents 81% of the respondents. So low growth is popular with the majority. About 15% respondents support a city tax, 20% support user fees, and about 50% support the city pursuing grant opportunities. There are some things we could do with grants, but you cannot really run a city day-to-day operations or maintenance on grants. Most people will pay for new things, but they won't pay for maintenance and operations. So that would be a topic of future discussion potentially. The residents were almost completely evenly split on law enforcement. And this question is in the survey twice, which kind of gauges how you feel and how strongly you feel about that, if that makes sense. But it's almost exactly 50-50. I think it's 51-49. There's some rounding error here in favor of we need additional law enforcement versus Wayne County Sheriff's Department is adequate. A majority support accessory dwelling units in one way or another. 28% of respondents thought they would be acceptable as long-term rentals. 40% if they were used by friends and family only, and a small percentage included short-term rentals in there. The short-term rentals were a lot less popular. About 25% of our respondents have signed up to volunteer for city events, and 75% were not interested in volunteering. And the last question was on interest in disincorporation. 68% of residents want Dune City to remain an incorporated city, and 32% were in favor of disincorporation. And then if you read the notes at the bottom, not everything, when it's published, will add up to exactly 100%. There is some rounding error in some of those questions, and not all respondents completed every question. So we had 152 submitted, 141 of those online, and 11 via paper that were entered by staff. And we can see in the back end, 139 of these that were done online were within the United States. And interestingly, one of them, evidently their IT server is in Canada, and one was in France. But the comments, I made sure they didn't look like they were bogus surveys done by somebody that found it on the internet. Their comments fit right in. I mean, if they were making it up, they figured out our population and the viewpoints of the average citizen. So they were not purged, even though they show they came from potentially a foreign country. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. But like I said, we'll provide all this information to everyone, and then we can put it on a future agenda for some more in-depth public comment and a deeper dive by the council to identify some items, because there's a lot of data. All the comments will be any free format comment. A number of questions had an other. The first one, question 8, it had an other. There's a page of comments. So all of those will be reproduced as is. None of these are edited and put on the website along with all the survey results. So anybody have any questions for me up here? at this point. And I just went with just this stuff for all the rest of the comments are in there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Rich, any comment? No questions? Chris? Yep. All right. And Tom's just seeing it. Susan, anything you want to bring up right now?
You want to look at it?
Sure, I appreciate that. Melissa, there's a ton of
I'd
that.
like to review it before I.
All right. And Joe?
Just procedural, so what's the next steps? Surveys are great. That is great, but are there,
So we'll have another future meeting. We'll put it on there for, I would ask the council to pick out, look at the numbers and then read all the comments. And if you see something there that you think we should act on, let's bring up a list and say these, I saw this a lot, like this meeting came up a lot. It's a county road, but certainly we can talk to the county. So I've already started that. We had that discussion at a previous city council meeting. So, for example, but there's a lot of comments so, yeah, we'll bring it up again. And then by then the public will have seen it, so we can take a lot more public comment and questions as well. So, with that, any comments from the public, please raise your hand. We need to get your name for the record. We're recording this so we can make meeting minutes. If you have any questions or comments, please.
I'd like to know how the survey was distributed. My name is Elaine Gerard.
Okay, so it was on our webpage. It was discussed at a couple of public meetings and it was on the webpage. There was a reminder on the Dune City Facebook page, and then a postcard was given to the post office to deliver to every household in Dune City. So they weren't addressed, they were bulk mailed, to the post office, and that we paid for a postcard to every, it would be every household. So it wasn't vacant lots. That was up to the post office to sort those, put it away. Property had a PO box, they would get one as well, even if it was vacant property, if that makes sense. And then there was a notice on the bulletin board here. There was a notice at the post office, a paper notice as well. And postcards were left at the post office, here at Westlake Post Office. Did you not receive one?
No, I don't believe we did.
Okay. Anyone else? Please.
I would like to comment on both the survey and, if I could, your recent editorial in the St. News.
Can you state your name?
Sure.
Yes, my name is Jeannie Jackson.
All right, this is a combined, this is item 7 as well.
Yeah.
Citizens input on
About the survey. And-
items not on the agenda. Go ahead.
Okay, so and this is really not so much addressed to the council because you are all aware of these things, but the people attending may not be. So I just wanted to know if you're aware of the fact that there will only be 2 individuals appearing on the Dune City 2024 ballot, and they are new arrivals to our community from Nevada and California. They were hastily appointed by 3 members of the 2023 council in order to have enough members to form a quorum so the city might continue. Ed McGuire has proudly identified himself as the mayor of Dune City in a recent editorial in the St. News. This is without ever having received a single public vote in the election. The other, Chris Clemens, recently retired from the Air Force, is currently in charge of Dune City's videos and website, where before we had a more neutral video. Mayor McGuire has assured us that the budget Dune City has struggled with for years is now in balance, but gave no actual facts as to how this occurred. The only currently known source of the possible cash flow increase would be the increased fees from allowing more short-term rentals. This would be in direct opposition of the citizen concerns of last summer's and the announced moratorium. The mayor further says, brags about the quality of life survey, saying he believes it to be the city's first that has ever been conducted, but it is not. A very similar survey was conducted in 1998, and there were others. Many residents were not even aware that this survey was occurring. The 2024 survey was not offered in hard copy except by concerned citizens at their expense. Additionally, some have reported that once completed, they could not easily submit their online form. Mayor McGuire also boasts of services such as schools and fire districts, which are actually not provided by Dune City. There is no contingency to provide sanitation, citywide water, health services, libraries, transportation, or policing. Our questions and pleas often go unanswered, even when brought up in letters or meetings where the citizens are allowed to speak, such as now. Dune City states that there are no taxes while continually repeating their desire to have them. So what is the truth of the matter? What is the truth of your goals? We all pay a lot of taxes already, so why would we need to add an extra layer of city government that does so little for us? Life was better for some of us before, when we just had to answer to Lane County and the state of Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone? Well, anyone on the survey, or we can go right into citizens input on items not on the agenda. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to item 8.
I think I need, I should be 7. I don't think I completely understood that when we asked that question, I thought we were going from the survey on today, but I do have something.
Okay,
It
go
was
ahead.
given to me by a family member. Please don't take this personally. I think it's something we need to talk about. This is Geneva Jackson. At last month's meeting, the mayor stated that he himself would not be working as the new code enforcement officer. According to the mayor's most recent newsletter, the job will be paid for with revenue generated from permits, fees, and vacation rental permits. These are both things that people have stated they don't want. My questions are, and my family members' questions are, why does the mayor's own LinkedIn account list his occupation as mayor compliance investigator? What is the difference between a code officer and a compliance investigator? And then if there is a difference, please explain what a compliance investigator does in Dune City. Is it a paid position? It doesn't sound like a role that the mayor of a city should be performing for ethical reasons, whether it's paid for or not. Please explain.
So normally there's no discussion, but you bring up something that's not on the agenda and has nothing to do with Dune City. That's 2 different things on my LinkedIn account. I'm the mayor of Dune City and I'm a compliance analyst for the Nevada State Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, and I am paid. And it has nothing to do with Dune City. I don't
Okay,
provide any
that sounds
services
good.
there. So hope that clarifies.
I'll share that with family.
Okay,
And certainly, Mayor McGuire, if you want to respond to anything I said, feel free to do so.
any other comments during item 7? Citizens input on items not being discussed in a public hearing. Seeing none, we'll jump forward to the mayor's report. I got some correspondence from Susan at the Water Master's office, and as of this week, the Silcoos Dam is getting upgraded motor controls and motors, so I think all 4 gates will operate properly.
They are all operational and good as of day before yesterday.
Very good.
The dam had been open for full 24 hours and got some water moving, and it's closed back down to a certain percentage. We're still moving water, but things are back to where they should be.
All right, good. Good to hear. And I mentioned there's speed feedback signs installed in 2 locations, one northbound, one southbound. On Clear Lake, those were installed by Lane County. And if you noticed, I think a couple of weeks before that, there were count tubes on Clear Lake and Canary. That again is Lane County for their annual traffic counts. They report to the ODOT and for functional classification with road maintenance, that sort of thing. Has nothing to do with city. He was information. From the short-term rental permit perspective, When we did the revisions to the short-term rental ordinance, I think there were 43 permitted short-term rentals. As of today's date, there are 26 that have reapplied, so a number will cease to be short-term rentals. They had a window to renew in September. We gave ourselves the month of October to review and re-permit them, so the number has decreased. And we'll have a future agenda item to discuss. We left the number of rentals or the number of permits, if we want to cap that. We left that as a to be determined, so that'll help you when we make that decision, with the council decide what the right number is. As of right now, it's 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got an update.
27?
29.
29.
22 of them are previous ones.
Okay,
12 of them are brand new. No, 12 have not renewed
gotcha.
that we previously had. 7 are brand new. So we have 29
Okay,
that have applied to date and 2 that have completed all their requirements 100%.
thank you.
May I ask a question, Mayor?
Yeah,
In regards to the lower census of possible short-term rent permits, how does that affect the code enforcement calculations that we did for income?
the assumption was it was a part-time employee, and I think the less short-term rentals you have, obviously the less revenue you have, but also hope the less need you have. So I think they go hand in hand. If, you know, we did models from 30 to 50 or 70. If you had 70, it would be a more full-time job, but if we end up at 30, then, you know, it's a half-time position that will be funded, I think, with the revenue, something like that.
Pull a new spreadsheet or, you know, that we had received before be drawn up to show the reflection of the decrease in
Yeah.
short-term rentals.
Yeah, we'll make sure that, we started with an estimate, yeah, we can plug in the actual.
Thank you.
And then the only other item, by state law, ballots can be mailed starting today. So I expect Wayne County will have all the mail-in ballot packets out today or tomorrow, and the last day they can send them. By law, it's the 22nd next week, I believe. So you will receive that very soon at home, or you should. That. Pam, did you want to cover permit report? We have a handout. Does anybody have any questions? Any permits?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead.
Repeat what you just said about the ballots,
Yeah.
because what I read was that if they are postmarked by November
No,
5th,
no, 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 no.
they will be counted.
To send them out, they are just being mailed out. The
Okay.
state by law, each county,
Okay.
registrar of voters has to mail them out by starting as early as today. They can't mail them earlier today, and they have to be mailed by the 22nd. And then there's actually some dates if they claim there's a hardship and they can ask for late mailing. I don't expect Lane County to do that. So in the next week, they should all be in the mail around here to you, not from you. Yes, and then you have until election day, 8 p.m. to drop them off or get them postmarked.
I think that would come report.
Okay, I think there's copies on the table over there. Did you have any questions?
No, I didn't
Okay.
see it, so I don't know.
Anyone else have any questions on permit report? All right. Next item. Next item is a public hearing for a FEMA ordinance, and before we start that conversation. When I was appointed mayor, I was sent information from the Coastal Mayor's Caucus. There's 29 cities on the coast, including Dune City. So I agreed to join the group, so I get all these emails for mayors on the coast. And on behalf of the mayors, a letter was sent to our federal delegation. Seaside Mayor Stephen Wright is the president of the Coastal Caucus. And on behalf, I'll read a piece of this. On behalf of the Coastal Mayor's Caucus, comprised of the mayors of all cities on Oregon's coast, from 12 miles inland to the sea, that's the legal definition, I guess, if we're in 12 miles, I'm contacting you to express our collective concern regarding FEMA's pre-compliance implementation measures. We are appreciative of your advocacy for us with FEMA thus far, but wish to reemphasize the enormity of the impacts that will occur to all of our constituents if the December 1 deadline is not immediately halted. If enacted as currently presented, residential, economic, agricultural, and infrastructure development in 31 counties and 239 National Flood Insurance Program communities in the state of Oregon will be affected. So, this ordinance that we're going to discuss is kind of last minute news. On July 15th, 2024, FEMA notified all jurisdictions, including Dune City, to select a pre-compliance implementation measure by December 1st of 2024. The mandate follows a 2023 lawsuit. And basically, in August, it says FEMA's model ordinance released August 14th of 2024. So the ordinance that's in front of us was drafted on our behalf for all the communities. It said, here's your model ordinance that will comply. And then there's a separate document, a plan. So if we approve the ordinance, we'll review the plan. I don't know if the plan has to be adopted by the city or it's for our use, but you either use the plan or you create your own. The city is in no position to create their own flood insurance plan. And the concern is if you don't adopt the ordinance, anyone that relies on the flood insurance program could be at risk. Either the rates go up or you could be canceled because you're no longer a participating community in the program. So we're between a rock and a wet place, let's say. And then separately, I got a memo just within this week, September 24th update on the environmental impact statement and modifications for the National Flood Insurance Program related to the Endangered Species Act. And it's supposed to be 2 pages of clarification or simplification. Currently, if you live near the lake or a stream in Dune City, we have a riparian buffer that's 50 feet from the ordinary high water mark. So you're not supposed to cut the bushes or the trees down and you don't build your house in that area. They proposed to change that to 170 feet from the ordinary high water mark. So if your lot is not more than about 250 feet deep, there's not sufficient room left to have the front yard setback, a house, and 170 feet. So this impacts future development or future renovations or additions to existing homes. We have lots of homes that are within 170 feet. In fact, probably 2/3 of them are that are on the lakefront. So it impacts the properties drastically. And there's some more details. This has not been reviewed by LUBA. So the city's obligated to have an ordinance by December 1st, but if our ordinance affects people's property rights, the city could then be sued for the loss of the use of that property. So that's one of the concerns. So that information is going to our federal jurisdiction. So if we get to a motion tonight, the motion is to review and approve the ordinance, but the effective date would be after the lawsuit that we presume will be filed any day now. Separately, Coos Bay, no, not Coos Bay, it was, what's it? Tillamook. I think it was Tillamook, took the lead. Tillamook and the League of Cities have hired an attorney, and I got an email that said, are you interested? And I said, yes. So I get their email, their updates. I think part 2 to that will be, okay, we're filing in federal court and we need money. We have not been asked to donate any money to the cause, but that'll be the next step. So I think this is going to be, there'll be an injunction, there'll be a stay, that this will end up being discussed for 2 years. So if we approve this tonight, if we get to that point, it will not be effective tomorrow. It will only be effective if this runs its course. And the normal course would be a 1-year period for any Endangered Species Act or environmental impact statement review and public comment period. That's normally a year, and they shorten this to
What happens if we do nothing
5
tonight?
months. If we do nothing, we won't be prepared. If they don't get a stay, we have to do something by December 1st. in theory. Or we could do nothing and see what happens. Good
Can
question.
we do something next month and see what happens with the?
Yep, and we could do something on December 2nd if nothing happens, we'll be calling an emergency meeting if we want to be compliant with flood insurance.
I think it would be really not appropriate for us to vote on it tonight, seeing as that a lot of this is not even seen as
I know,
ordinance.
this is all brand new stuff, that's why I bring it
We
up.
still follow the same thing like we've done on our short-term rentals, and at least have a work study time
Yeah.
to review.
And our, yes, the script for this is adopt as an emergency exists, so it would be 2 readings tonight and would be done, but it would be on the shelf with an effective date after this, but absolutely, if you're not comfortable, then we can table this and see what happens. Now that we're meeting twice a month, we can see what happens is without an emergency meeting as late as the middle of November, because now it's been posted and published. So now it's just put it back on there as old business, so.
As much as I want to be protective to the constituents and the property owners, as we are all property owners ourselves.
Yeah.
I worry about
Probably half of
jumping
you were
in.
directly affected by this.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would rather take time to read this,
Okay, you bet.
to act appropriately.
okay. So, would you like to make a motion? To continue this to a later date?
I'll make the motion to continue to the next
All right.
study.
Well, certainly.
Do you want it to a specific date, or do you want to wait to see what we hear back? Or just put it on the work session for discussion?
To jump on to as we're reviewing in the event that we need to do an emergency.
Then
I
we'll put
think
it
that's
on
the best.
the next agenda as just as a discussion item for, we can go through it page by page. Okay, did you get that motion? Motion to continue to the next meeting and seconded by Tom. Everybody. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Why are they doing this?
I don't know exactly.
Look at the,
part of the problem.
look
It
at the
didn't get the
recent
normal-
things of how government has been with FEMA.
It didn't get the normal
Begin to
year
wonder.
of input, yeah.
When we have our
I can't figure out what we're
climate,
trying to protect.
our climate, the way I could only imagine it's coming down because of the recent issues that we're having.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Ms.
I'm sorry, I was gonna make a comment during your public hearing, but you're.
Oh, I'm sorry, since we're not having it, go ahead.
So, I reviewed the existing ordinance, comparing it to the one that they're proposing.
Yeah,
They're very similar,
yeah, a lot of it's very similar.
but there are some changes that are really concerning. And, the last ordinance, the last version did not go before the planning commission. So they didn't have a chance to review all of the language.
Gotcha.
There are some things from that version that are in this version that conflict with Dune City's existing code.
Well, and that's one of the mayor's comments is that our code would have to change to match FEMA's the way this is going. If this is adopted on December 1, they don't care if you have a conflict, you have to change. And that's a lot of the mayor's concerns is it has not been reviewed by land use folks and every city's ordinance is slightly different. There's 29 of them code.
And
So I mean, it's a point well taken. We'll have to visit that.
how many percentages of the properties on those 29 coastal cities, do they have, how much percentage of property is gonna be affected from a 50-foot to a 170-foot?
Yeah.
And totally make those properties just
But no-
unusable.
Yeah.
I mean, mine would be one included. I mean,
Well, it might not be
We
unusual,
would wipe out some
Unusual.
totally in Westlake.
but it might be that you have to use it different. So that's a good question. And-
well, I mean, we'll just say, God forbid, that, my place burned down, now we get a 170-foot setback.
Right, you couldn't put it back.
Now I can't put it back. Now I've lost my business there.
170 feet across the street.
That's way, way, way across the street.
So, and for the work session, I'll get that guide that goes with it. Because it has scenarios like, what would you do here? There's a bunch of little cartoons. There's another 32-page guide, so we'll make copies of all that. for the work
Could I ask a
session.
question to Rapunzel, or maybe you
Yeah.
can ask it on behalf of us on it, she can point out the differences that she is seeing that is not settling with the planning commission?
Yeah, So
I didn't hear that.
the things that the planning commissioner from a land use should like to point out, I know Lila also compared the ordinances, but I don't know if Lila talked to you about the land use, any conflicts, so in 2 weeks, we'll discuss them again. Could you give us a list of those conflicts by then, so they get discussed?
We can amend the planning commission agenda to look at this next week during our
Right.
regular meeting. Yeah, so talking about the riparian zone, our definition and the state's definition for the riparian zone is 50 feet.
Right. That's the big change.
So the buffer zone language is confusing because it's referring to tidally influenced streams. So not all of the streams in Dune City would be affected, just the tidally influenced ones. It's confusing.
Right. That's part of our problem is who maps that for us? Right?
We don't have any maps that say.
Exactly. And that's part of the challenge is it says appeals go to the planning commission and we lack the expertise maybe internally and the average applicant lacks the expertise to know if they're a tidally influenced lakeshore or stream. So that's the problem we face is it's too fast of an implementation. You know, they gave us till December 1st and said, if you want to be compliant, take it to council and approve it. So, but yeah, we can give it at least, we have more than a month to play with. Sounds like a lifetime. But yeah, we'll have that conversation in 2 weeks and go through it page by page. But for now, we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor of continuing to the next meeting? Any opposed? All right, we're unanimous.
Excuse me, may I ask a question? You said you were in communication with the other mayors along the coast.
Yeah,
By the way, my name is Cheryl Ludwig.
hi.
Hi. Are you guys as a group gonna, I mean, this is concerning.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, that was the letter I was reading was from the president of the mayor's caucus, and that's the mayor of Seaside. So this letter has gone to our federal delegation, and then separately, we had one mayor, they said it has to be unanimous, if we're gonna take any additional action, and we had a mayor, and somebody, it doesn't matter who, but it wasn't unanimous. So he said, I'm gonna send a letter, and then Coos Bay is, not Coos Bay, who did I say, Tillamook. Tillamook and the League of Cities are hiring an attorney and they'll be looking for an injunction. And so there is action and I'm signed onto that list. So I get their updates. There hasn't been an update.
Would that lawyer in Philomath be representing all of the coastal cities?
Well, that's basically what he said. It's Tillamook is going after it and after the entire
For all?
thing, not just for the, yeah, and they said, is everybody in? And I said, I'm in. And so that's as far as we had to get. They didn't ask me to write a check, but, yeah, if there's any injunction, we'll get an update. Because you're right, it's a
That's
big
great.
action.
December 2nd's not far.
No, it's not.
That long.
It really is an unusual process for them, and that's part of the complaint is it's just too fast. I mean, normally it's just the public comment period is normally a year.
Yeah.
And then sometimes these things, I mean, I've been involved in it, really took 5 years. We went back and forth forever. You weren't even talking to the same people by the time something got approved, you know, everybody had retired. So I appreciate the comment, but we'll continue that. We'll have an in-depth conversation and, you know, a lot of this stuff, if you Google it, it's available. I mean, these flyers are things that FEMA published. And then they emailed me this little 2-pager, but it's out there. At FEMA.gov/about. Good luck, there's probably 10,000 publications, but anyway. The next item is, revision to our water ordinance, item B. This is also a public hearing. This is a little more straightforward. Before I read this whole script, it's a clarification. We talked to the water master's office. we have water that is diverted with city water rights from Woking Lake, Silkus Lake, but they're called the Woking, let's see, what did it say? Woking Creek in one spot, and it's basically the creek and everything downstream is the watershed. So it doesn't actually change materially where the water's drawn or who's using it. It was clarification. So this is, ordinance number 271. The proposed ordinance requires 2 readings before it is enacted. The city charter, section 34, let's see, paragraph 3 provides that both readings may be read by title only if A, no council member present at the meeting requests to be read in full, or B, a copy of the ordinance is provided for each member and all requirements for posting and advertising have been met. In this case, well, I'm supposed to ask the city recorder, who's not here, but we have an acting city recorder, have all requirements for posting and advertising been met?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Does any counselor desire to have the ordinance to be read in full? Seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to read the ordinance by title only. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's unanimous. I will read the ordinance 271 by title only. And it reads, an ordinance correcting ordinance number 231A and specifically sections 51.20 entitled definitions by adding the definition of Woking Lake to comply with the Oregon Water Services Department permit number S33923, application number 45456, section 54.45, amending the requirement.
51.45, Mayor.
I have it real quick.
It's 51.45.
Wait, it's 2 different things. Amending section 54.45, amending the requirements of the property owner and the elimination of section 51.5.
This says 51.45.
Oh, 51.45, I have a typo. Scratch that, it's section 51.45, it's all in section 51. And amending the requirements of a property owner and the elimination of section 51.50. Okay, we will now open the public hearing at 6:42 PM. City recorder or acting city recorder delegate, have you received any written testimony to be read into the record at the hearing? And if there's anyone that would like to speak, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak, after which the counselors may ask questions. You should address the counselors as a whole and not individually. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this matter?
Yes, I will.
Go
I'm
ahead.
Geneva Jackson, and I will read this, and one of my concerns is that and I need my 3 minutes to do this, but I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do.
Okay,
One of my concerns is, I was never able to get this up on your site. I haven't seen what you've done to it, I only know what it looked like before. So what I'm reading may not apply at all, but I'll read.
okay,
Okay. The mayor stated at last month's meeting at Dune City that that the city has a right to the water of Silkus Lake due to being in the same watershed as Woking Lake. The following week, I called the water master, Susan Dowd. She verified that Dune City does not have water rights to Silkus based on the argument that Silkus is in the same watershed as Woking. She indicated that she had told the city, Dune City's multiple times recently that they do not have the right to the waters of Silkus. The water master observed that there seems to be a confusion, and she would be willing to come to a meeting to reiterate publicly that the city does not have a water right. Mr. Stinson, who spoke at last month's council meeting regarding water, said that he had spoken to the water master. He stated that he had also been told that Dune City does not have a water right. Dune City does have a water permit that has been renewed every 5 years since 1969 in an attempt to get a certified water right. Proving up on all these diversion points has been a complicated task. You can't simply announce that you have a water right you don't have regarding ordinance 231A. If the city passes a new version of the ordinance that includes Silkus Lake and does so under the guise of correcting the Scrivener's error, it would be in violation of its own charter. It's insulting to the former mayors and the council members to suggest that they somehow failed to notice that the former ordinance only referred to water in Woking. This is new legislation. A Scrivener's error is a minor unintentional error such as a typo. This is a significant intentional change to the ordinance and as such should comply with the section 4 34 motive enactment. The motive enactment states that every ordinance shall be read fully and distinctly in an open meeting on two different days. Even then, all council members present must unanimously vote to read the ordinance in full once and by title later. If this is the case, all members must be provided with copies of the entire ordinance, and 3 copies of the ordinance must be available to the public for public inspection, as well as 2 other public places in the city and or the newspaper. I've attempted to read the updated version of the ordinance 231A. It may have been up for a while and was removed. Was it in the newspaper? I can see no excuse for violating the charter. Please follow your own policy and educate the citizens.
Thank you. So we are following the charters.
And
We are in violation of what the water master said. I'm confused because that's who we had the conversation with.
Well, I had a conversation with her too, and apparently Mr. Stimson did as well. So,
Mr. Stimson's conversation was different. That was a different question. But we specifically asked her because it only names Woking Lake and Woking Creek. And she said it's the outfall. It's all the way to the city limits at Silkus River. Which is why we were making this correction and we weren't doing a Scrivener's error. We could just make the correction. We wouldn't have a public hearing. We're having a public hearing. Hang on a second, Rapunzel.
Okay.
So, you got a completely different answer than staff did.
well, that's interesting. I
It is.
spoke to her for quite
It's
a while.
troubling. So this is not a rush to violate the charter. This is to follow the charter. We advertised it in the newspaper. We had this discussion at a city council meeting a month ago and said we
But you
will.
didn't list what you had done to her.
Yeah, we
The
did.
new one, because we have got.
We had a very public discussion about the couple of changes we proposed.
You proposed.
Yes, at
Yeah,
that
did you
meeting,
read
you
it?
discussed the
I was
proposed
there.
revisions. This is where we would approve the revisions. The other was, it says we will record all of them, and when a property sells, we'll re-record it. None of them have ever been recorded. And there's no point in recording it in a property owner's name. It goes with the property. It's a property.
Well,
right?
that part of it I remember, but the part about changing, about saying that Silkus and, Silkus water is part of the Woking's watershed. I mean, Silkus is a huge ancient lake that once composed all of these things, including Woking. Woking,
But we're not
Lake's only
talking
one
about,
of 4 or 5 sources of water for Silkus.
understood. But I don't think the permit's that specific. And it doesn't talk about historic geology. It talks about current diversions. And that was our question to the water master, and she said, because when you look at where the diversions are, it shows them in both lakes, and they're the same city municipal water rights. That was our question, if that was a problem. She said, no, that's functionally the same. That's what's driving this, was a clarification in the definition. We're not removing any diversions or adding any diversions. They exist today. They are on file with the state. This was supposed to clarify, because there are diversions out of Silkus that are on municipal water rights.
Well, I too think.
Hang on a second, Rapunzel had a comment.
Well, I'm confused about that too. I was under the impression that the city's diversion points are only from Woking Lake and the creek, if that's applicable. not Silkus.
Well, that's what came out of the research, is there were diversions in Silkus. That's what brought this up. Yeah, I agree.
I do think having the water minister come, there was talk about if she could come and address this. This is such an important issue to all the people who live in Dune City. It would be nice to hear it from her because there has been a lot of confusion. And it's very important.
Any other comments? I don't know that it's pressing. I don't know if there was a water right or somebody was waiting on this, but, Lila put the package together and is not here tonight, obviously, so we can continue this to a future meeting and have that conversation. And if necessary, get clarity from the water master's office if someone wants to, if you agree, make such a motion.
Feel free for Counselor comment now.
Absolutely, that's
So
what.
I do have a question and I do have a concern too, because I've asked on multiple occasions, where is the water diversion points for permits underneath Dune City? And those diversion points are on accesses that are not owned by Dune City. So why is it that specific individuals within a group of homes are able to call there's the diversion point for Dune City when it is owned by somebody else or more people?
What's owned by somebody?
The diversion point.
That's two different things. So the physical, the pipe could be owned by anyone, a company. Like Fern Acres has a community water system. So this Fern Acres organization owns a pump and a piece of pipe, delivers water to 36 homes. But the water right to remove water from the lake is a municipal water right that they got through the city. Some folks got them through the state, some got them through the city. So it's two different things. You can have a water right and pump your own water. You can have a water right and it goes through one of these community systems. That is a further complication that's not covered by this ordinance, but, yeah, the first was, where are they? And keeping track of ours. Those are the ones we have to report on as a city.
So
When I say ours.
are you able to say as to where the diversion points for Dune City are?
Yeah, we have a list of everyone that's using a municipal water right, but many of those are a coordinate that is a point in the lake. It's not physically where their pump is or where their house is.
By Dune City?
It's not owned by Dune City. It's a water right that is granted to us to grant to others. So it's a pass through. And then once those are perfected, those properties will have a water right.
Okay, so perhaps I'm confused. I'd like to speak to the water master because I don't agree with that 100%. I need to get more education from the water master.
I think this change is minor compared to your questions. I mean, because there's lots of questions there with how water.
It needs to be an in-depth conversation with the water master doing the complete seeing as it's the state of Oregon, whoever handles the diversion point access, the permits, the rights, it needs to come from them, not from any other type of local government making that call. So the constituents feel that they are being fully educated before. And I, as a council member, would want to know that before I'm boarding up or, before I am, agreeing to an ordinance that I do not feel that I am appropriately.
The ordinance exists.
It does, but I think there's some changes that may need to be further investigated before we make that choice.
Okay. Any other comments?
I was gonna say-
Continue it either way, but.
I was gonna say, I think we need to stop the phone calls. Let's get it in writing, because once people change their answer, we say, okay, put that in writing. It's like,
We got an email back.
Right, so I think that we stop
Pretty specific.
people calling and, because we're all biased to our narrative, right? So we could hear, or we could ask a question and get a different answer. So someone that's opposed, very specific question, and get a very specific answer from this water master person, because it sounds like they may be talking circular, and we can just put this all to a written statement.
I think some of the comments aren't covered by this ordinance. Because, yeah, the question we had to Susan was very specific to this ordinance. It's only one sentence in the definition.
Yeah.
And we were given the green light.
Yeah.
But you raise other valid concerns. I mean, it's a complicated,
It's
And-
very
and we're creating a
complicated
map,
based on.
every parcel, if it uses lake water, and is it a municipal right, is it their right, is it something else? And so staff's been working on that, they're going through every address and color coding the map, so at some point, you're going to see a map, if everybody's got water rights and where they're physically located.
Perhaps that should be put off until,
No, because that's different than this, but, that's more of which ones we have to report for and charge a fee for, because we have to read meters and report back to the state. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in the way water's put in the ground.
Now, when I bought my place, water right went with it.
it goes with the
Exactly,
land.
it's a property right, it doesn't go with the person, that's why they would never report it in
And
person,
it's in my name,
as long as you own the property.
and I'm on the property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yours, what's this different?
Well, the old ordinance said each will be re-recorded every time there was a change of name, and it was never done.
So it's
And you
not.
don't need to because that parcel's identified, so if you own the parcel, the water right goes with that parcel.
There's a big
Yeah, it goes-
misconception that when you buy a purchased land and you have a water right, not a water certificate, that you have to put it in your name, and that is not true because it stays with the property, the house, the building,
Right,
not the owner individually.
right.
Mr. Jones, Mrs., it doesn't, it stays with that physical address.
And so there's a cost of recording, and no one was ever doing it, so that was the other revision, was to strike that requirement, because it hasn't happened in forever.
Sometimes it has happened, it's just not consistently
Well,
has occurred.
Nothing by the cities.
I know that there are people with water rights that have applied and had the water right put in their name, but again, was it duly necessary? Perhaps not, because it stays with the actual property,
Right.
not the
I
individual.
think mine shows up with the guy that drilled the well, that's the name that shows up, but it stays with property. So, any other questions, specific, I mean, we'll get some more info and we'll continue this. I need a motion, you can continue, or you can put that in motion, or we'll continue it until we get the info and then we'll put it on the agenda. You don't have a date specific in mind, that makes sense?
I'll make the motion to continue at this time.
Okay, so not date specific, we'll,
To not date
whenever we get all the info,
specific,
we'll
with
get,
me.
okay.
Do our further due diligence and education.
And,
I'll second.
all second, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That makes item 10 not necessary. It was additional deliberation after the public hearing, but I think we're finished with that. Item 11A is soil erosion and control plan discussion for the violation on on Logan. Clean Rivers is working on a proposal for it, so we don't have a proposal yet, but we'll have something to report soon, so that was the last status report. Item 12 is executive session. I don't believe there's any reason on executive session, so item 13 is for the good of the order. Joe, you want to break? Sure. Right here. No, Melissa.
I was just kind of really quick, I apologize to go back to 11, but there was something in our financial statements that reflected something with that individual's name, and I wanted to get clarification on that.
Where is that?
Forgive me, I will have to do my due diligence and look at it again. I threw my other copy into the short box, because I thought this one was different.
Oh, we didn't shred it.
Well, we
Did
could
it
probably,
Tagged?
no, it's probably got a bunch of scribbles by it, but
You want me to go do this?
no, give me just a second, but I appreciate it.
Is it right in the beginning?
Between
of page
Susan
four?
and I, we'll probably be able to find it pretty quickly.
Page 3 and 4 have incomes.
It was a very minor amount that was paid by that individual.
There's a.
Yeah, it appears.
On page 1. Was it $400?
Something about that, yep.
That's another appeal.
Okay,
That's an
So-
appeal of the second, that single tree that was cut, he filed an appeal, a timely appeal.
okay, yep.
So, yes, Lila called and said, I got an appeal and it's before the date that we would have timed out, so that will be scheduled for a future meeting. Mr. Clayton wasn't available, he filed the appeal. It says, well, and it actually said, we'll schedule it for the next available meeting, and he said, I'm not available until November. And she was going out of town, so that's okay, we'll just have to wait, the whole bill comes back and put it on. So that's kind of field that, it's $400.
Okay. And that was within the time range that we gave them?
Yeah, it was on time. I thought the time lapsed, and just gonna say 2 days. She said, no. When we know the letter, yeah, 30 days, and yeah, like 6 days left or something. So
Okay.
it was a time. Good question.
Nothing for the good of the order, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Nothing, thank you.
No, Chris? I have nothing. Rich? Nope, anything. Okay, so for the audience, we're finished. We will get the survey and all comments posted as soon as possible. They'll be on our webpage. And seeing nothing else, I need a motion to approve it.
Motion.
A motion to adjourn. So moved. Is that everyone? Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Anybody want to say? Thank you. We're adjourned. It is 7:00 on the nose.
Thank you very much.
You bet. It's birthday party down the street. Alan Smith.
It's nothing for the day when it comes, and when we get home,